All right, guys. Sorry I couldn't be there with you today. Got some previous engagements. I'm helping to interview the new principal candidate. So, anyway, when we meet next time, I'll give you a little more proper introduction to comparative religions. But to kind of give us a start on things, I want to give you guys a couple of things to get you thinking about comparative religions and how we look at comparative or how we look at religions in general. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is the Mass of God and how religions kind of affect all of us. So one of the biggest themes of this class is going to be that we are going to view the religions that we talk about within the world very objectively. Now, keep in mind that objectively means that we are going to look at these religions with a hard look to them, but we're not going to judge the religions. We're not going to be taking any sides on it. Now, I realize that calling this class comparative religions makes it sound like we're going to be comparing religions, but we're not. In fact, we're not going to be taking any sides, any particular religious sides within the confines of this class. In fact, we're going to kind of talk about a whole gamut of different religions. I think you guys will really enjoy this class. So if you look at your syllabus, you'll notice this is kind of the first part of the class when we talk about how do we look at religions. Why do the religions do the things they do? And that's kind of the first section of class. And we're even going to get into some of the very earliest religions like Native American religion, religion of the Cheyenne Indian tribe. And so from there, we'll kind of take a look at those and try to understand how religions start and why humans need religion. But again, like I said, we're not going to take any sides on that. I do have one exception on that, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. So from the aspects of validity, we'll also not be comparing religions. Now, there are some things that in our Western minds, when we start talking about certain religions, you're going to think, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. And because that's so ridiculous, this religion can't possibly be valid. Well, we're not going to take a look at that, and I won't even entertain ideas like that, because to each and every person, their own religion is just as valid as they want it to be. Okay, so I mean, keep in mind, we're not going to talk about the validity of any particular religion. I do, however, want you to keep some things in mind. Some of these religions that we think that we'll talk about will express that other religions are not valid. Okay, so we as a class will not look at religions and say, oh, that's not valid, and that's not valid, and that's not valid. However, when we talk about things like religions like Islam and Judaism and Christianity, it's not unusual to have a Muslim practicing Muslims say, oh, Christianity is not valid for these reasons, or oh, Judaism isn't valid for these reasons. Much in the same way that it's perfectly normal for a Buddhist to say Hinduism is not valid for these reasons, okay? So just keep in mind that these religions may not believe other religions are valid, but we are not going to approach them from that stance in this class. I mean, we'll talk about those other religions, how they don't believe certain religions are valid, but we're not going to judge whether or not that's true or not. Okay, so keep that in mind. In addition to that, some of the religions that we're discussing are going to hold that they are the only correct religion, such as Islam and Christianity. While other religions kind of accept anything. For example, we'll talk about the Baha'i faith briefly. That's not one of the major world religions, so we won't spend a ton of time talking about it. But they believe that there's any path that you want to take is an acceptable path to take. Any path that you want to take to go to God, that's perfectly okay with Baha'i. Okay, so just keep in mind that not necessarily all these religions believe that they are the only way to go. Okay, so the better way to kind of describe this class is that really we're not comparing religions. We're not going to ask, are these religions comparable, but rather, are religions complementary? Are they compatible? Okay, can religions live side by side with each other in coexistence? Now, I would argue that our ability to study religions will contribute greatly to our ability to live side by side with other religions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in how we study religions. But the idea is that the more you know about the world around you, the better tolerant you are of those things going on in the world around you. Not only that, but the more you know about the world around you, the easier it is to understand when certain things happen. For example, have you ever wondered why the Israelites are constantly fighting the Palestinians in the Middle East? Well, yes, there are some territorial issues there, but really what it all boils down to is a difference in religion. We could say the same thing about Islam as well. Have you ever wondered why there's so much fighting going on in places like Iraq and Iran? Well, you've got different sects of Islam, Sunni and Shiites, and even Kurds, that they believe that they are descendant from different aspects of the Prophet Muhammad. And so because they believe that they are descendant from different aspects of the Prophet Muhammad, they believe that they themselves are the correct form of Islam. And so consequently, disagreements arise over that. And so they're constantly fighting each other for the right to be considered the only form or the correct form of Islam. So perhaps a better way to name this class would be complementary religions, but since nobody ever has a complementary religions class, we'll just go with comparative religion. So anyway, I want to kind of give you an idea. An old Indian tale kind of illustrates this whole idea best. It's called The Tale of the Blind Men and the Elephant, okay? So if you could imagine... If you don't study world religions, if you are focused in only on one religion, maybe perhaps your own religion, maybe perhaps just a religion you're fascinated with, if all you do is you focus on one religion, you're going to be like the blind men in this tale. Okay, so it is said that once upon a time, a king gathered a few men who were born blind. They were each asked to describe an elephant, but each one was only presented with a certain part of it. Okay, so they kind of gathered around an elephant, and they were each allowed to touch the elephant, but only a certain part of the elephant, and then they were asked to describe it. The one that was presented the head of the elephant, and another was given the trunk, another its ears, to another the leg, the body, the tail, the tuft of the tail, etc. The one who had the head said, well, this elephant is like a pot. It's big, it's round, it's hard, it's clearly a pot. The one who had the trunk said this elephant is clearly a snake. The one who touched the ears thought the elephant was a fan. The other said, like on the leg, well, the elephant is clearly a pillar. When touching the side, they said the elephant is a wall. The tail, a rope, the tip of the tail, a brush, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then they began to fight among themselves, each thinking that he was the only one that was right and that the others were wrong. Well, the obvious truth that we know, because we've all seen elephants, or at least pictures of elephants, is that the elephant is a unity of many parts. And unfortunately, because these men were blind, they couldn't grasp that unity. They didn't understand that the elephant was made up of many parts because they themselves had only experienced the small parts that they could touch. Okay, and so this class is kind of like that. We are going to take you guys from being the blind men who can only touch certain parts to being seeing men who can see the whole thing and see how all these pieces fit together. The world is but a unity of many different parts that create a whole. And so religion comes in many masks. And we're not going to be discussing the validity of those masks. And like I said, except Pastafarianism. Here's the exception. We also won't be making fun of religions except Pastafarianism, because Pastafarianism was a religion that was created to make fun of other religions. So I guess, in my opinion, it deserves to be made fun of. So we'll talk about it later. The idea is that we want to kind of unblind our eyes. We want to be able to see all the world religions, how they interact with each other, and what makes them part of the whole world that we live in. Okay. So my goal in this class, by the end of the semester, is to inform you about the major world religions. I'm not going to try to persuade you one way or another about what you believe. I don't want to do that, and I don't want you guys to misunderstand me and assume that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to constantly be telling you guys, hey, I can't tell you what to believe about religions. In fact, that is my job. My job is to tell you what I know about world religions. For example, I have my own beliefs on religions, and if you ask, I'll tell you what I believe, but that doesn't mean that I am going to put any sort of my beliefs a tint on the other religions that we'll talk about in this class. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Much in the same way I expect the same out of you guys. I want you guys to understand that what you believe is what you believe, and I'm not going to change that, and I don't want to change that. In fact, I want you guys to be more firm in your beliefs after we're done with this class. But on the other hand, I also want you to be aware that there are other religions in the world, and that at any given point in your life, you may have to interact with somebody from another religion if you haven't already. And so that's really kind of the idea behind this class. I want you guys to understand the other religions in the world and to understand what they believe, understand where they're coming from with their beliefs and why they believe those things. Okay, so ultimately that's my goal for this class. All right, now I gave you guys a little bit of a research assignment. I went ahead and posted it to your Google Classroom. Okay, and I put the Google Classroom link up on the wall. I believe that we've all, or pretty much mostly all, been added. I think a couple of the new folks in the class have not added that yet. So if you go to Google Classroom, you'll see a place where you can add a class, and I want you to add this class, and you'll see the link up on the board there. Follow that link. And add this class, and you'll see your assignment. I want you to research 5 world religions. Now, I've got a couple of books that Mr. Johns will have for you guys if you guys want to look through the books. Otherwise, there's a huge world religions chart link that I've put on that assignment. So what I want you to do is find 5 religions that we ideally won't be covering in this class. We'll be covering Hinduism, we'll be covering Buddhism, we'll cover Shintoism, Taoism, Confucianism, we'll cover Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. So not those, but if you find a certain sect of those, for example, if you find a sect of Christianity that's kind of interesting and you want to talk about that, that's fine. All right, so you guys have the rest of class to do that. Get on it.